Hello everyone, my name is Zeotrex, and today we're taking a look at Superman. Starring David Cornsweet, Nicholas Hoult, and Rachel Brosnahan, Superman follows our titular character Superman, and he's been Superman for around 3 years now. Lex is trying everything in his power to stop him. Following Superman stopping a conflict in this foreign country, Superman is now under fire for doing good. And that's all I can really say about what the plot is. This is a bit of a hard movie to give a plot to, and I'll get into kind of why later. But here I am. So I'm talking about Superman. So I remember the day that James Gunn had announced it. It was January 31st. 2023, and it was called Superman Legacy, and it always had the release date of July 11th, 2025, and it stuck right by that. I just remember sitting in the office for a doctor's appointment, checking my phone. We saw that first look at his emblem. And then I remember seeing Superman pulling his boot up. There's this thing in the background, which is funny watching the movie. Him pulling his boot up and actually seeing, the suit, the behind-the-scenes photos. We got our first trailer. I remember the journey. David Cornsweet getting casted as Superman. And it's been 2 years since that announcement, and it's almost been 3 years since James Gunn became the CEO of DC. So my excitement levels were through the roof. Now, Superman was a character that, in all honesty, I wasn't that interested in, or was really the biggest fan of, before, James Gunn. Actually, no, before Henry Cavill's cameo in Man of Steel. And so, that kind of got me into the character a lot, and not Man of Steel, Black Adam. That got me into the character quite big time. I mean, look at this. I'm reading this comic books. That's quite a different contrast to how I felt about the character when I did my Man of Steel review. Who is messaging me? I'm talking about Superman. So yeah, my excitement levels were honestly through the roof for this, because I'm going to try restraining myself when it comes to this review and just mentioning the Henry Cavill version and Man of Steel. I'll talk about it. I mean, I kind of have to, but it's not going to do this movie any good if we're just going to sit there and just compare it to a movie that came out 10 years ago, What good is that going to do this? But that movie, Man of Steel, wasn't really the best Superman movie to have for only 10 years, And so ever since Christopher Reeve, we've kind of had an issue with keeping a consistent Superman franchise. Superman Returns didn't do so well, so we had to wait nearly 10 years for Man of Steel. Man of Steel, people liked it. It didn't flop or anything. It was definitely more of a mixed bag for some people. But Batman v Superman, that's what really got people disliking it, and not really the biggest fan of that. And so that's kind of what killed Henry Cavill as Superman. But here we are, new Superman movie for a new era. My excitement levels, again, were through the literal roof. A faithful version of this character that's bright and vibrant, that's leaning more into those kind of lightheartedness of the character. The character that the superhero, Superman, who redefined comics for generations to come. The guy who's literally the face of superheroes as a whole. So did it? Of course it did! Of course it succeeded! Let's get into it. Superman was what we needed. With how comic book movies have really just been burning us out lately, mainly due to the main source of them really being the MCU, and the DCEU kind of faltering a bit near the end of there. This is what we needed. We needed Superman back on the big screen. Just, being Superman. The superhero. This is what the Batman was to Superman. Superman is what the Batman was to Batman films. This is what Superman... This is the You get what I'm saying? Just a faithful representation of the superhero on the big screen, showing us truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. Let's get into what I just absolutely loved about this movie. It's not flawless, however, but those lows of the movie you can just ignore. I feel like you can ignore those lows, and like when you do think about it, it kind of is like, okay, I kind of wish they did some things differently. But I think the highs shoot the lows like out of the water into where it's like, yeah, no, I walked out of this thing with I wanted to do an out of theater reaction, but something happened that kind of made that a bit difficult. But my excitement levels were through the fucking, like, David Gordon Sweat as Superman has the potential and is already shaping us to be one of the greatest Superman actors of like all time, showing us the humanity and like that kind of cornball, good boy scout like depiction of Superman, and that's what I've been missing. Again, I'm gonna restrain myself when it comes to talking about Man of Steel. I will talk about it, but Superman has this soul, he has this passion, this kindness. The kids run up to him, they jump up in his arms. He saves a squirrel at one point. He goes as far as to even saving a squirrel. Like, he says thank you to these robots who can't feel emotion. And that's just who Superman is as a character. Just those over-the-top acts of kindness. Someone that you can look for and cheer on. And he's not treated like this sort of god. And that's what a lot of people get wrong about Superman, is that they think that, because he has these like godlike abilities, he's just super boring. He gets his ass kicked a lot in this movie, but what this movie really focuses on is the human side of Superman, kind of showing us that he's essentially one of us if he had having superpowers. He was raised as a human, and he has powers that he chose to do good with. He is your neighbor. He is a friend to society and the people. And when he gets his ass kicked by the hammer of Baravia, Baravia being this fictional country in the movie, he's helped up by this guy who Superman stopped by to get food one time, and that's what I love to see. And David, he's great as acting. Again, he can get pretty corny as Superman, but that's just who he is as a character. When Krypto, who I'll talk about in a minute, destroyed the fortress, he's like, what the hey, dude? Superman robots. I thought just things like that where he's just, he doesn't swear. He's like he's a boy from Kansas. He's a goody two shoes. He gets emotional when he needs to be, like when he's facing the criticism for doing what he believes and what is morally the right thing to do. When the dog is taken, he gets upset about that. He has emotions like any other human being. That's just who Superman is. And this suit, it has grown on me quite a lot. That first look was not a good first look, and I definitely have a few gripes with the suit. Mainly the lines. That's really just it. It's the lines. Not even like the detail on the like shoulders or like the arms. I think those look okay. Just these, the sort of lines that go up and like you've seen it in every superhero suit, and I'm tired of it. That like those are just such pet peeves I have with just superhero suits. But I think like this movie, a lot of the good outweighs the negatives, and that's the bright, vibrant colors, just the bright, vibrant blue. He has the yellow S on his back. He has the tights, the underwear, the trunks on his, which really just put into. He's not someone you should fear. He's someone that you should look up to and feel safe around. And a lot of people, again, are getting that wrong about Superman. They're like, oh, the trunks look silly. He's supposed to look silly. He's supposed to look friendly. The trunks make him look like a friend to the people. And all seasons here, they address the cool costume. Thanks, my mom made it for me. Which, this wouldn't have worked because this is obviously a Kryptonian suit. I mean, why would Ma Kent make the S look like that? But, yeah. It's a great modern take on a classic suit that still feels like Superman. It's not exactly the suit that we all know and love, but you can look at it and still get the energy that it is Superman. another thing I really liked about this movie was just how comic booky it really felt. A good majority of the scenes felt like comic panels come to life, and the way they play out. And James Gunn has already filled this DC universe in with only one movie, which a lot of people said that it feels like we're just rushing in. I like that we're just being put into this universe. Like, this is a world that already exists. This isn't something that needs to be built up and shaped up. Nope, already exists. Metahumans have been around for centuries. Superman's been Superman for 3 years. He knows the Justice Gang. I'll get into that in a minute. Like Superman mentions some like things like intergalactic zoos, and if there's a comic book in this movie, like if there's a comic book that like you can see the inspiration from, it's All Star Superman back there. That was my first ever Superman comic I read. Probably not the best choice. I should probably reread it, but it's a great comic nonetheless. And I just felt the energy that Grant Morrison had done with it all over this movie. You know, the Daily Planet, they team up at the end. That reminded me of how they teamed up here. Just everything about that really, it just reminded me of All-Star Superman, like the vibrant tone of the movie. And a lot of people might have issues with some of the CGI. It's a bit wonky, yes, but it's not distractingly bad. It's just noticeably CGI, you know? Yeah, it's just noticeably CGI, but I wouldn't say it's just bad or horrendous. It's playing into that comic book vibe. And it's the same cinematographer as The Flash. However, that film looked fucking awful. That film looked shitty. This doesn't look as bad. There was color grading complaints, which I never really had an issue with. Yeah, it's bright and vibrant. It's great world building so far, which can also get a bit exposition-y at times due to this being our first DCU film. I'm willing to let it slide because, again, it just puts us right in the middle of the world. It's like, you know, Superman, he's been here for a bit. Superman's been here for a bit. He knows some other heroes. There's intergalactic zoos, and, you know, Metropolis is attacked by a new monster of the week every day. I like that. I like that a lot. And let's talk about Clark and Lois's relationship. So, you know, Rachel is great as Lois. She's hard-headed. She doesn't bow down easily. She's not going to become submissive. She's her own person. And that's who Lois Lane is. She doesn't stop at anything. Just because, Clark Kent is her boyfriend, she's not going to sit there, like, play it easy when it comes to interviewing him. You know, she's going to ask the hard questions. Like, you know you're getting criticized heavy for the fact that you're saving people out there. And, like, why are you being like... A lot of people had issue with Superman yelling like that. I didn't really have issue with that. They have some truly magical moments, and it's just she oozes the energy that Lois Lane had, or like someone like Margot Kidder from the Reeves film. And this movie feels a lot like the Superman Reeves film a bit, but it stands on its own. In fact, I just love how the Daily Planet cast is used as a whole. Not major characters, but they're there long enough for them to be notable. You know, you have Perry White, who great to see him used more. He was played by Lawrence Fishburne, which was great casting, just badly wasted. Steve Lombard, you know, the kind of cocky interview reporter. Cat Grant, which, god damn. Characters who, like, these guys don't really need a major focus, but they get enough attention to where they're noticeable. One thing that was surprising to me was how much Jimmy got Olsen. How much attention Jimmy Olsen has. He, like, actually has, like, a pretty big part in this movie, which makes sense because it's Superman's best pal, Jimmy Olsen. He was just barely in the marketing. I thought it would be sort of like a Reeves film the Reeves film, where he was just sort of there to, like, hey, look, it's Jimmy Olsen, you know, and I would have been fine with that, you know, don't restrain myself. I would have been fine with that, but no, he actually does have a pretty important part in the movie, and I like that. I like that Jimmy Olsen is getting a pretty, substantial role. Something I will note, though, is that I do wish we got to see that reporter Clark Kent a lot. All of his scenes of him as the reporter Clark Kent in the Daily Planet, yeah, they're in the trailer. I wish we got to see more of him, but the movie more so focuses on Superman, the Clark Kent that Lois sees, not really the reporter, and the Smallville Clark Kent. And Chris Stuckman said this about Batman, and I think it could be true about Superman. Let me know if you guys agree on this. There's three sides to Superman. There's Superman, the hero. There's Clark Kent, the disguise. The bumbling persona that he puts on, not or kind of puts on. I guess you could say it is truly him, but the disguise that he usually has to blend in with society, and Clark Kent, who he is, the Kansas boy raised in Smallville. That's my opinion on that. I know that might be because what Chris Stuckman said was that there's three sides of Batman. Batman, the playboy millionaire, and Bruce Wayne in the cave, which that I definitely agree on. Those are the three sides of Batman. So I wonder if you could say the same thing about Clark Kent. Maybe the reporter disguise and the canvas, that's just who they are. But I can definitely see the difference between the Smallville boy and the Metropolis boy. That's just my kind of personal opinion on that. Again, that comic angle is played up really well here, and again, I just mentioned All-Star. I'm just gonna pass right by that. And visually too, this movie is pretty stunning at times. I saw this shit in IMAX. This was my first ever IMAX film, and such a brilliant experience that we all had. Just the scope of it, just seeing all of that. People were wearing full-on costumes. I got out of the theater. I saw a little boy, like a little kid in a Superman outfit. And I was like, that right there is what Superman needs. It's generational. And this is what's going to reaffirm who Superman is for the next generations to come. Kind of like how, unfortunately, Man of Steel did it. That's why I didn't like Man of Steel as a Superman movie. I might go back and re-review it because I have a stronger opinion about it now as a Superman reader. Snyder in the Injustice games really did not do a good job on reaffirming who Superman is. It put the idea that he's boring, that he's this unstoppable god, and like this Superman, Corn Sweat, what he does is that he goes out of his way to save people. There's that infamous shot where he's saving their girl from the monster. Whereas in the final battle of Man of Steel, he jumps over the Lex propane tanks. I think, yeah. And then those explode, and he didn't really try to stop it from hurting anyone. And he was just so dead focused on fighting Zod and just causing so much collateral damage around him. When Superman 2 also did it where, he would stop fighting Zod, Ursa, and the big dumbass to stop and save someone, which is what Man of Steel was really missing, was showing him with the humanity side of him. And when the courtroom blows up in Batman v Superman, he's like, that just isn't what Superman should have been in the public image for over 10 years. Henry was screwed. I will admit that. He probably could have been a great Superman had he been given a different creative future. And I do think how he looked in Man of Steel, Black Adam at the end with the hair curl and the bright yellow and blue emblem, that suit looked great. There's times where his suit does look good. But Man of Steel, I didn't really like how that looked. But there was just a lot at DC, and I don't think it's fair to blame it all on Snyder. I just will say that he wasn't the best pick for the Superman. Not only do I just not think he's the best filmmaker, he has a vision. He is a great visionary. He's a great action set pieces. He makes great action set pieces. He definitely knows how to direct. He just doesn't know how to tell a story or to write. I think that's kind of what the big issue is, and he needs a better understanding of what he is adapting. Again, as a Batman fan, I fucking hated Batman v Superman, just because I feel like he didn't understand Batman all that well. He didn't understand Batman, and if you want to make those changes to that character like that, if you want to make the changes to the character like that, you should also do a good job on explaining it. And I don't think they did the best job on explaining Batman v like why Batman is the way he is. Oh, his Robin died, but when you look at like the comics, he also had a Robin that died. Like there again, it's not just Snyder. It was DC as a whole around that time, jumping right into Batman versus Superman for the second film of a cinematic universe. Imagine if Iron Man, we got introduced to Iron Man, and then next movie we got introduced to fucking Captain America, Black Widow, Hulk. We set up the Avengers. All of a sudden, Iron Man's dead. Damn. And while I don't think DC should have done what Marvel was doing, they should have definitely done a better job at that. But like, all we can do now is just move on from Henry. Henry's out, David's in. Instead of bashing on the new guy on the block, why not accept it and pass the torch from Henry to David? Like how the torch was passed like how the torch was passed to Henry from Brandon. Like how that torch was passed from Brandon to Christopher, from George to Christopher, Tom Welling to Tyler Hoechlin, Dean Cain, passing it on to Tyon. You get what I'm saying? A lot of people have played Superman. Why are we so attached to a version that wasn't really the best? And I know you could call out hypocrisy like, oh, we're still so attached to Christopher Reeve. Well, he was a good version. And again, I liked the idea of Henry Cavill as Superman, and he definitely had his moments. It was just that like we're so focused on a Superman that's just what's done and over with. It had its chance. That's why we're doing this. We're retrying it. We're rebooting it. We're giving it another chance. We're going to do it right this time, I hope. Hell, in like the far, far future, David might not be Superman anymore. For whatever the reason, maybe he gets old and he passes away, or the turmoil within DC happens again, and they have to cast a new Superman, and they get rebooted. While I do think this is going to be kind of like an MCU situation where, like, Tom Holland, he's not getting replaced as Spider-Man anytime soon, not for the long, near future. But in the far future, like probably when we're all dead, like when that moved on and comic books hopefully are still a thing, Tom Holland might get recasted. Like someone new as Spider-Man might come in, because that's just how it is. We want to keep these characters alive. We got to get new people, and after we're all dead and gone, and they, for the time being, I think David is here to stay. I think they really did truly hit it out of the park. And yeah, so this movie, okay, that was the tangent. That was the Man of Steel tangent, kind of saying what Superman's been missing. Let's get back to the movie. The movie also introduces the Justice Gang, a gang of sponsored heroes who do it more as a job than... Hold on, let me drink some water. They do it more as a job rather than like out of the kindness of their heart. So first off, Mr. Terrific. He is the fucking standout of this movie. Wow, he's goated. He can be funny at times, but he's goated. And just every scene he's in, he oozes badassness. For example, when they go to save Superman from the pocket dimension and they raid the Lex camp, just pure aura farming there. And that's when you can tell that James Gunn directed this movie right there. Stuff like that. That's another thing. This is probably James Gunn's least James Gunn movie so far. Because if you look at his other comic book movies, they have like crude people and they have emotion, yeah, but they have like crude ensemble teams. And while you can sort of see that here with characters like Guy Gardner, who I'll get into in a minute, it definitely does feel like James Gunn was trying something new. But at the same time, you can still tell that he directed it. Guy, on the other hand, this is like, it's just what you expect from when you hear about Guy Gardner. A crude doofus with a dumbass haircut that he gets his moments to be a badass, but he was funny. Everyone liked him. He's definitely a standout. Hot Girl, on the other hand, while cool, I do think she gets a bit of the shorter end of the stick here, unfortunately. I don't see her in as many conversations about like any like hype moments that she's done. Like, Mr. Terrific, he had that camp scene. Guy Gardner, he has the tank, the Baravia scene. Actually, wait, no, Hawkgirl has her scene. But I'm not seeing her in as many conversations as Guy and Terrific, which she definitely did get the shorter end of the stick here. She's still badass, though. I like her. Pretty actress, too. I think she has potential. And also, another thing, if we're gonna... I hope we see Black Adam's Hawkman return. I know James Gunn said that DCEU actors wouldn't play the same roles for the most part. We'll get into that. But I'm hoping that Hawkman shows up. I think him and this Hawkgirl would have good chemistry. And Krypto, finally, the big marketing. This is how you do the marketable character. First of all, Krypto's already an established name in the Superman universe. It was just a long time coming before we see him with Superman, honestly. And yeah, I'm excited. I liked Krypto a lot. He's funny and such a little shit. I think he was great. Just the right amount of screen time. He wasn't overused, which was something that a lot of people were. I was kind of worried about, was that they would rely on him too heavily. But no, he fits the story pretty naturally. There's one thing I don't like about this version of Krypto. He's not Superman's dog. It's mentioned that Clark is babysitting Krypto, so that's kind of why they have this annoyed relationship. Krypto's biting on Superman's foot, and there's even a moment where Superman's he's not really a good dog. It's mentioned that he's not Superman's dog. I'm a bit disappointed in that, but I can see why, considering what's in the future. Now Lex Luthor. Whoo, boy, what a fucking menace. Straight up hater. Holt as Lex is just so goddamn good, and might be even the best Lex we've ever had. This is who I imagine Lex Luthor to be. A billionaire, cunning genius who just has this unimaginable evil hatred. He's compared to Adolf Hitler and Saddam Hussein and Genghis Khan. No. Those are the people that he looks up to in All-Star Superman when he's on trial for execution. That's what it is. And again, Hackman's Lex was cartoonishly evil, very comic book evil-ish. Kevin Spacey, that guy's just a villain. Not even as Lex. That guy's just a piece of shit. And Jesse Eisenberg was fucking horrible. I did not like Eisenberg. So it's great to have Holt as Lex Luthor. A lot of people said that he has the potential to be the DCU's version of Loki. And I agree. And it makes the characters like, say, Joker, or more what I'm excited for, Reverse Flash. If Holt is this big of a hater, dude, imagine how awful Joker would be. Imagine how absolutely diabolical Reverse Flash is going to be if they introduce him. So, there's shit that Lex does that I genuinely was not prepared for. Let's get into what I didn't like about the movie. It's not as big as of a list, but definitely something that, I'll get into it. It's not that bad. It doesn't ruin the film, but definitely stuff that I think could have been worked on. Pacing. So that it is an overstepped movie, unfortunately. There is just a lot to address, and it kind of goes from plot point to plot point a lot. There's just a lot that goes on, such as the kaiju, the Hammer Baravia, Ultraman, the whole Baravia conflict. That's why I mentioned earlier it was harder to really describe the plot of this movie, because it jumps around. It doesn't really have a central plot. Instead, a lot more of mini plots. And that's what I mean, is that pacing can get a bit off at some. I thought it was fine, but I definitely did notice that it felt a bit overstuffed. And the first 30 minutes of the movie, I definitely do think was a bit harder to sit through. Not because it was bad or anything, but just because we've seen it all in the marketing. And while I'm good on the marketing for only really showing off that portion of the movie and still getting us excited for, cementing us what the film is going to be about, and still having a lot of it remain unspoiled, it made it a bit difficult because, we've seen that all in the marketing, and so it's like, all right, now it feels like I'm watching the trailer, especially at the beginning. Like, the beginning was that 5-minute clip, except for one thing. I'll get into that here in a minute. And the two other villains other than Lex were the Engineer and Ultraman. They just don't have the best presence in the film, and Ultraman especially, I think, was really, like... I'll get into Ultraman here in the spoilers, alright? Engineer, she's scary, she does some scary things, but I think these guys are here to set up for future films. Engineer for Authority, which we might not even get. Like, that one has been, kind of up in the air. So, yeah, that's just what I didn't like about the movie was Engineer, Ultraman, they were a bit weak, pacing's a bit off, there's a lot going on, which makes it kind of a hard film to describe. That's all I can say without spoilers. So, let's wrap it up before I get into some spoilers. This is a 30-minute review. That's a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. Gunn knocked it out of the park. He really did. This is his fifth DC film, fifth comic film, and he just absolutely knocked it out of the ballpark. I'm glad that Creature Commandos, which was his weakest project, because it was his weakest project, in my opinion, was the Burnout project instead of this, because, man, this was excellent. The lows, they don't ruin the film. Those don't ruin the film, and while there were elements that I do wish could have been better, like, kind of better paced, the highs, man, everything this movie does right, it does fucking right. I guess you could say that the highs are so high you could look up. Superman is generational. This is going to be the movie that redefines superhero content for years to come, and hey, it's a great first impression on this new universe. I hope other films in this genre step up their game. It gets an A. I still gotta fucking fix all that. So, let's get into spoilers. First of all, the opening. Jor-El is played by Bradley Cooper, Rocket Raccoon. That was cool to see. It was cool to actually get to see Jor-El after kind of like wondering who's going to play him for a majority of it. So we learned that Superman he constantly listens to this message that Jor-El leaves to him, Kal-El, to soothe him and remind him of why he was sent here. Except that's not why he was sent here. Lex raids the fortress, the Engineer translates the message. Kal was sent to take over Earth and to repopulate, like, the other Kryptons and essentially make Earth into this Krypton 2. So, Jor-El is sort of this kind of dictator guy. What a choice. I'm still kind of sitting on it. I want to see how it develops in the future. And just... Because, like, they sort of did something similar with, My Adventures with Superman, which was the most recent animated show, the most recent Superman show outside of Superman and Lois, where the Kryptonians were conquerors. They were like a conqueror species, but they sort of redeemed themselves. Jor-El kind of became like a better man later on. But because of their past actions, that's why, like, Sam Grant, who I kind of wanted to see in this movie, honestly. Sam Grant being Lois's dad. That's why Sam Grant wanted to hunt Superman down, was because he was a Kryptonian, and Kryptonians have caused a lot of issue before. However, I think by making it's such a weird choice to make Jor-El evil like this. I hope we get to see this expanded upon more, but it leads to this excellent scene of John Kent and Clark talking about how that message didn't really matter to what Clark interpreted it as. Because half the message was mistranslated, he took it as a duty to do what he thought he needed to do. It didn't matter that he was sent there for another purpose. He did what his choices are. Those choices are who you are. And I love the Kents in this movie, man. You know, Ma Kent, she's just such like a loving old lady. She's such like a love her southern like accent where she just come in and make me an apple fritter and knit me a sweater, please. And John Kent, a lot of people were kind of up in the air about whether or not John Kent was necessary because, he always usually dies. But wow, man, I'm glad he's alive in this movie. And that scene of him and Clark on the bench talking about it, like those choices that Clark, made, dude, that almost got me fucking tearing up. And that's what most of the movie did. It's excellent. And that's what makes this such an amazing Superman movie, because at the fucking end of this has been the moment I've been thinking about ever since I saw it. With like Lex, he's gonna go into this pocket dimension. Superman stops him, and okay, now this is where it gets a little bit political. I will get into that in a minute because it's important to talk about when talking about this movie. But yeah, it gets a little bit political, which is fine. That's who Superman is, and it's a great way to discuss it. But Superman, he talks about what it means to be human. I get scared. I wake up not knowing what to do, but sometimes I put my foot in front of the other because that's what being human is. And that speech, that is on par with the fucking dreams save us. Dreams lift us up and inspire us to do something. Like, that is who Superman is. That fucking speech at the end. That was what, like that. And I've seen some people complain about like the comedic relief moment where Krypto comes in and starts biting on Lex. I needed that. Or I would not have been able to hold myself together during that scene. Because just, dude, I think about that. I think about this speech all the time. And like, again, we heard it in the trailers, but when you see it actually in the movie, it's so fucking beautiful. It is, oh my god, I love this movie. And let's get into it. He's an immigrant. He is an illegal immigrant. But he is just like us. Yeah, he might have laser vision, he might have ice breath, but he gets scared, and he's a human. It doesn't matter that he came from another planet. He might be like a biological alien, but in his heart, he is a human. The movie does have a political theming, but I mean, it's fucking Superman, champion of the oppressed. It's gonna have that. And I'm not gonna talk about the woke stuff because I did promise in my Ironheart thing that I'll stop talking about that. I've said everything I needed to say, but fuck you, Fox News. Fuck you, Dean Cain. The Boravia in the other country, which had a really hard name to pronounce, they're clearly a message for Israel and Palestine. This is a very anti-Israel movie, by the way, which I love. And there's that scene at the end of these little kids holding up this flag saying, Superman, Superman. And while some people were a bit upset about the fact that Superman didn't actually come and save them, he was too busy with Metropolis, and it was the Justice Gang, I like that his kindness inspired Guy, Hawkgirl, not Terrific, he was also in Metropolis, and Metamorpho, who I forgot to talk about Metamorpho, inspiring these other people, these other heroes to do the same thing. So that's where I see the Kingdom Come influence. Now, this is a story that I want them to save, all right? This is a story I want them to save up until, make this the sort of end game, I guess, or phase ender, the ending to Gods and Monsters. Do this story way later down the line, because there's also the Hall of Justice, and I'm gonna have to find a clip online of someone who recorded it, pause it, and look at all the superheroes. But apparently, Wildcat was on that. We're definitely gonna see Wildcat in the DCU. That's just such a James Gunn character to use. But that moment with the kids just praising the Superman, that was just so beautiful, and shows the impact of what he has. This movie has the message of kindness. So, there's a cameo at the end of this movie. There's actually two of them. Before we get into the one that actually, both of these caught me off guard. The one that mattered at the end, before we get into that, Peacemaker, he showed up. That was so fucking cool. And I like that a lot of people in the theater, they were clapping, they were like, haha, yeah, Peacemaker. if that, like, I'm glad that James Gunn had that impact. Everyone likes Peacemaker, and it feels natural too because of just it's that's James Gunn's sort of DC starter. I liked Peacemaker. Okay, well, I haven't seen the show. I just like seeing his cameo. So yeah, it's going to tie into season 2. The Pocket Dimensions is also mentioned in Peacemaker season two's trailer. I gotta watch that show because I am excited for season 2. But yeah, so at the end of the movie, Superman is getting healed from wounds. We hear Crash. I thought it was going to be like, oh, Lois or like the Terrifics or whoever. The Terrifics, that's another one I want to see. Mr. Terrific like crashing in. But no, the robots like mention like, oh, hey, your cousin's here. Kara? Yeah, Supergirl shows up at the end of this. I did not expect that. So yeah, it does reconfirm that yes, this is Krypto is Kara's dog, Kara Zor-El. She just looks so good. Her suit, like her skirt, her shirt, it's covered with a jacket. I can't wait to see the full thing. But I'm excited for that. I'm so excited to see Supergirl, and I'm glad that they did this because it ties right into the next movie. That's a great natural way to connect it. And yeah, I heard Krypto gets shot in the book. I have to read that, but she's super fun too. Having this like a party girl persona, which apparently is a coping mechanism for her because of how she feels about Krypton and feeling alone. And this ending, dude, instead of Jor-El's message, it's just the Kent memories. His dad playing superhero with him, and just it's such a heartwarming ending. And I think ending it with Punk Rocker, I've been listening to that song a lot. It's perfect. So there's 2 post credits. You don't got to stick around for these. One is this really cute visual of Superman hugging Krypto on the moon, which again, All-Star reference, I think, right? That happens in All-Star. But also, I like that this kind of mimics the real life origin of Krypto for this movie. That's Ozu. So let me get into what I think this means. It means that Superman and Krypto have bonded. They like each other, and Krypto has felt comfortable around Superman, and Superman has really grown attached to Krypto. That's what I think that means because the reason why he's in this movie is because of James Gunn, not James Gunn's dog, Ozu, who was just like a complete little shit, and that's what Krypto is modeled after. But now, like, he's a loving dog that James Gunn, like, he feels comfortable around him. I like that. And the ending credits, the very end of the credits, is them putting together Metropolis again. Fixing the raft, and Mr. Terrific's like, okay, you fucking fix it then, and just walks off. And it's like, man, I can be pretty rude sometimes. Nothing you gotta stick for. Gotta keep that in mind when it comes to the new DC films, because James Gunn said that they're not gonna try setting anything up. I liked that how they did it here, where it's like, yeah, our next movie is gonna be Supergirl. I'm excited to see that. I just reviewed Superman. That was an amazing experience. Every moment of this adventure has just been amazing. Pretty super, man. I'm gonna miss this. I really had a fun time at the theater. I love this movie, and yeah. Now I don't know what to do. Well, my next review, should be you know what time it is? You know what time it is? Here's the thing. My next review should be Fantastic Four, but I don't know. It really depends. Mortal Kombat 2 is supposed to have a trailer out this month. We still have yet to get that. But until then, look up.